Board members, if we can get you to take your seat, we're going to get started here shortly. And if IT's listening, my mic went dead. I'll be using this one. Want to welcome everyone to our portion of the meeting for Utah Schools for Deaf and Blind. We've got quite a bit on our agenda, but I think we'll go pretty good here. First, we'll invite our financial year-end report. We have Finance Director Carl Empey. Are you ready?
I am. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and chairs and board members. It's a pleasure to be here. We've got a number of financial reports to present to you this morning, so I'll try and be as expeditious as possible because you've got such a big agenda. The first two statements are the financial statements, what they used to call the balance sheet, which is now what they call statement of net position. And the second statement is the old, what they called income statement, which is changes in net position, statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. There's a lot of numbers on these two reports. These are what we will submit into the state. These are all preliminary, subject to other post-employment benefits, which is for the educators and our staff that were employed prior to 2012. They get a benefit where they can convert 1 day of sick time into a month of health insurance. And that comes with a big expense, and the state is doing that calculation right now. They anticipate having that done in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So we'll be able to update these financial statements once that is completed. I think to really just to bring to your attention on the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in that position, if you look at really 4 line items, it comprises 90% of our expenses. And let me just kind of go over that. Personnel, salaries, and benefits obviously is our main expense, and that comprises generally about 78% of what our total expenses are for the year. Our pupil transportation totaled $4.8 million, which is our second largest expense. And then depreciation is $1.4 million. You add all those up, and it totals just roughly about $41 million of our $45 million of expenses that we incurred during the year. I think just to state, we are fiscally solvent as of the end of the last fiscal year, June 30th, 2021, as we are at the end of this first period, and that's the next report I'll get to. But before we get to July, I'd just like to ask if there's any questions that you may have.
Questions, comments? It looked like the close went well. Took a little time, but
It did. It took time. We're waiting for the state to give us the last update on the financial reports. Once we did that, it took about 2.5, 3 weeks for us to close out.
okay, and I'm not seeing any lights on. I can't read them here. So, board members, I'm trying to track if you'll turn the light on. And your light. All went. I think they're going to come back and reprogram, but I know that one's working and this one. So,
Okay,
Member
it wasn't working
Cannon,
earlier.
what is your
so-
question? And I'll try to repeat it.
Okay.
It's working now.
Okay, I just wondered, under non-operating revenues, they've listed investment earnings, and I just wondered what kind of investments they have that they're earning from, and what's the source of those investments? I mean, I think it's a good idea, but I hadn't been cued into it before. If you wouldn't mind explaining that.
That's a good question, Board Member Cannon. All of our monies that we invest are invested with the State Treasurer's Office with their Public Treasurer's Investment Fund. They do a wonderful job investing the money. It's basically like a money market account, but they give us above market rates for the liquidity and that we have access to. The sources of funds are really threefold. The biggest one is our foundation account that's just over $1 million. And those are donations that have been made over the years to USDB and now to USDB Education Foundation. The second category is our donated account, which is the non-foundation donations, and that totals, and we'll get to that in the July report in just a minute, just over $200,000. And then the third source is when the state transfers, the monthly transfers to us to pay our expenses, those funds are invested as well. You're welcome.
Member Moss, is your on? Okay, it's just showing here, but not there. Okay, I'm not seeing any lights or anybody waving, so please continue. But board members, if I could get you to log in, make sure like you have before, that will help because it's showing up that Finance Director Empty is actually called out as Jenny Earl, so it must be what was maybe the last time.
I'm honored.
And yeah, you've been upgraded today for a moment. So please continue.
Okay, the next financial report is for our first month, July. Really not a lot of expenses. Our educators aren't back. The contracts have run their course. We received from the state $4.5 million. And in that's larger than normal. We received $1,425,000 in addition to our monthly $3 million from the state. That, as you may recall, we had requested $900,000 to buy property adjacent to our campus in Mill Creek. And then there was another $425,000 to pay for the construction of a new modular unit that's next to Mill Creek Elementary. So they advanced those funds to us so we could make payments. And as Superintendent Coleman will indicate, we did buy a parcel, a home, and a lot that we came last month and discussed with you. Our expenses were just a little bit over $1 million, so we had more than 3 million inflows than we did outflows. So again, we're fiscally solvent. Just to bring to your attention, back to Board Member Cannon's question, our land grant enrichment funds total about $786,000. And Board Member Cannon, that's another fund, I'm sorry, that we have invested that we receive interest earnings on as well. Our donated fund account is $274,000, and our education foundation is just a little bit in excess of $1.2 million. The reports behind that are all the granular detail to support our inflows and our outflows of expenses. And then the last report is our enrichment funds. In terms of the projects that you approved back a couple months ago of $1,420,000, we just have a very early start. We've only spent $24,000 of that money and have a remaining balance of about $1.4 million. Those are the financial reports for year-end and for the first month, July 31st. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from board members on these reports? I have one.
Okay.
And that is on the donation piece, there seems like there's always quite a bit of balance there. Is there any state restrictions on that money, whether you could put that in someplace drawing a little interest, or are we required to leave it in a bucket not earning any?
I think in terms of safety, being invested in the Public Treasurer's Investment Fund is a sound investment. They're paying a little bit more than market interest rate right now in terms of where money market accounts would be paying, the banks would be paying investors and corporations for their money. So I'm comfortable. If you'd like us to explore that with the State Treasurer's Office, I'd be happy to do that.
I just wondered on opportunities that were in that space of a fair return while it's certainly earning.
Right.
And some people will diversify that a little bit, but I was just curious.
Okay.
I don't need a report next week. I was just wondering because that seems like there's always a good balance there. Cash flows well. I'm not seeing any other lights on, except
Mr.
the
Chair,
one
I
that
have one.
says, oh.
Maybe
your
as a
slide is
follow-up
on.
to your question.
Yes.
In those
Superintendent Coleman.
Yeah,
So
thank
people
you.
that are listening will know.
Oh, that's right, Superintendent Coleman. So that donated funds account too, that's mostly held by the foundation. The big chunk of that is still there as we continue year after year to try to identify a piece of property for the outdoor learning center that has been the vision of the board and probably 3 superintendents before me. And we're narrowing that down. We've kind of found a couple we're trying to, but it's sort of a secondary effort to running the operations of the schools day to day. And so also with that, it needs to stay liquid in case we are able to identify that. And the foundation's working very hard with that being one of their main goals, in addition to the, the charitable things that they're doing every year for our students and their families too.
Okay. I'm not seeing any of their lights on. Director Ampiat, so let's move to our next item, which is an actionable item. It's on the school fee. Do you want to introduce?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Every year, the Legislative Fiscal Analyst Office in the legislature asks us to present to you as our governing board our proposed fees that we charge to operate some of our programs. And so your agenda item you have for us is pretty much all the same fees as you reviewed and approved last year. The only difference is when we have personnel involved in that LEA, the blue section, in the middle section. We've got an educator, audiologist, educational interpreter, teacher's aide, and student educational services aide. Those fees all went up because of the educator and also for the audiologist. The WASA calculation, the step increase that the legislature gave us of 6.79% last year. And then the other categories of employees all went up 3% by the COLA that the state legislature granted to state employees. Other than that, all the fees stay the same. There's 2 fees that are omitted. Last legislative session, the legislature gave us authorization for USIMAC that produces our large print and Braille for our population in the state. They gave them the ability to charge a printing fee of $150 when they sell one of their books that they've translated into Braille to another entity throughout the United States, and then a $15 shipping fee. So those were not on your list, but they should be on their list. And so I would propose that you would propose or approve all these proposed fees in addition to the 2 USIMAC fees.
Okay. Board Member Cannon.
I am just wondering, are all of these fees waivable to your patrons?
Yes.
And do you have, just generally speaking, do you have a lot of fee waivers that you need to give for kids at USDB?
Not a lot, because these fees, like the athletic fee that we charge a student to participate in any one of our athletic programs, is only $100. We do that to help just recover a minimal portion of the cost, but we'll waive that, and we'll also let the students work on campus to earn towards those fees as well.
Okay. And then it just seems to me a little odd that there would be a fee for an educator and an audiologist. That's not something that I think we see typically in fees for other places. So maybe you could explain those to us, why those are included.
I'd be happy to, and then let the 2 associates chime in as well. As you may recall, there's the category of greater than 3% of the student population for the LEAs and less than 3% of the student population. For the small school districts that have less than 3% of the student population, we don't charge a fee for that. I believe there's 8 districts that are the larger than 3%. There's 9 school districts or LEAs in the state that have greater than 3%. When we contract with them to provide teachers for the visually impaired and also for the deaf students, we will contract with them to charge them to recover the rate of the salary and the benefits for those costs.
I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, I just want to throw something out here because of what you brought forth in this meeting on the USIMAC fee. Did I say that correct?
Yes, you did.
It's a $150 USIMAC fee. Is that?
A $150 printing fee and a $15 shipping fee, or for postage.
So if I was to seek a motion from this body, the motion would be that the board approve the fiscal year 2023 USDB fee schedule, including a $150 printing and $15 shipping USIMAC fee. Board Member Hanson, your light's on.
Yeah, I just had a quick question, and then I'll make that motion. I wondered how many out-of-state students we have that are paying that tuition fee.
That's really a good question, Board Member Hanson. We only have one right now. We had one from White Pine School District in Nevada, and they're sending that student back out to us again this year.
Wow. Okay. And I will make the motion that we accept the schedule of fees with the addition of the USIMAC fees that were discussed in today's meeting.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, Board Member Booth.
And just to make sure the numbers are correct for this, I'll restate that and see if this is good, that your motion is to approve the fiscal year 2023 USDB fee schedule to include the $150 printing and $15 shipping USIMAC fee.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion? Board Member Lear.
I just want to make sure, and I think this has been mentioned, but I just want to ask again, that includes every fee that's charged, every T-shirt that children are offered to buy that's part of the school opportunity, every field trip. It covers everything, because this is kind of I know you don't have a large student body, but
Right.
this is an abbreviated list.
The only item that you mentioned is T-shirts, and we sell those at cost. They're like $5. That's not on this list.
But it's not a fee either.
It's not a fee.
My understanding is if the students have it or are expected to have it, whether they go on field trips so that they're identifiable, or those kinds of things, they are fees, is my understanding.
Okay, you want to respond?
Michelle
Someone
Tanner,
from the
Associate Superintendent of the
superintendency.
Deaf. Actually, we always cover those. So that's part of when we do the enrichment activities, when we do after-school activities, we include those costs so they don't have to
So
incur
no
that.
students pay them, is that
No,
right?
we buy them for them.
Thanks, that's helpful to know. Thanks, and that's, I think as it should be,
Yeah.
given the fee situations, but thank you very much.
Okay, the motion on the table is that the board approve the fiscal year 2023 USDB fee schedule which includes $150 printing and $15 shipping on the USIMAC fees. Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? You see where Laura's at? She's a yes. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Next item is an actionable item, and it's the LEA specific license renewal and approval. We have both associate superintendents for the blind and the deaf here, which is Susan Patton and Michelle Tanner. Do you want to take point on introducing the opportunity before the board?
Sure. Thank you, Associate Superintendent Tanner, for the use of schools deaf and the blind. We're just working on some technology things. I'd like to show to you what exactly we're asking. This is in line with the board rule that we need to share with you, anyone we need to issue an LEA-specific license to. There was some changes recently that has altered that a little bit, but we have 4 people that are actually LEA-specific licenses, and we're requesting that for them to have an LEA-specific elementary ed license for these 4 individuals. 3 of them are on the blind side,
Yes.
and there is one on the deaf side. In line with that, we have underneath that 4 other names that are people who would get the associate's license if truly you guys choose to change it so that we can accept regionally accredited programs. So for us, we have 2 programs within the state of Utah for teaching deaf education. They each have small numbers, and they haven't in the past been able to accommodate teachers who are in the classroom. They don't do anything online. So these individuals have sought degrees in deaf education outside the state of Utah. They're fully accredited programs, and they graduate educators that we want and help us. They are, as of right now, we would get an LEA specific, but if you approve that change and allow it so that people that are in regionally accredited programs, we would apply for an associate's license for them. But since we don't know the direction or how that's going to head, we've included them on the full list, which I have here. We're just trying to I just wanted to give the names. I have here up to the side. Anyway, one of them is an audiologist. There isn't actually an LEA-specific license for, I'm just giving you a little background, an LEA-specific license for audiology. So although it's odd, we're actually requesting an elementary ed license for that to accommodate these new changes that have occurred. The other 3 are teachers of the deaf that are seeking outside. The audiologist actually is finishing a program here within the state, Utah State, or University of Utah, and we're just doing her internship for her final year. And then for my one teacher, I have one teacher that needs the LEA specific, who got a master's degree in educational technology, deaf educator. This will be her final year of getting an LEA specific license. She actually has no ambition of going back to school. She's in her 60s and thought, a whole new degree after I have a master's in educational technology doesn't really appeal to her. And then you've got 3 educators, if you want to
Yes,
speak to those.
I have 3 educators. 2 of them will be in programs in spring semester, and they have actually worked for USDB as a paraeducator. Then we have one that is coming to us, similar to Michelle's situation, coming to us from Wyoming, who has a bachelor's degree, but still needs to get licensed as far as for a teacher of the visually impaired. So we're working on that. But we also have 3 teachers that are in the same predicament as a school for the deaf that have out-of-state licensing that we're just trying to get them licensed in the state of Utah. So all 3 of those are working diligently on getting that. The School for the Blind does not have as many conflicts as a School for the Deaf, but, it seems it's very difficult for us to put them in an elementary education category because that is not their expertise. And these teachers they're experts in their field and will be experts in their field, and their degree is not going to be elementary education, but because of the restrictions in Cactus, they will be listed in elementary education. We have to do that to meet the requirements of the associate licensing path and then also the LEA specific. So it's a conflict for us, and it's a difficult challenge.
Okay, Board Member Lear, your light's on?
I have a question related to this.
Okay.
Now is a good time for it?
Yep, it is.
I'm trying to understand the recent contact that our office received by the Office of Special Ed saying that we can't do these LEA-specific licenses for special ed teachers. And the fix, or the immediate fix, is to do what you described,
Right.
put them into an associate path. But doesn't that affect their TSSP money?
Absolutely does.
Yes, it does.
And so I'm troubled that we're sort of, and I don't have a solution for you, and I'm not blaming you guys at all. I'm looking for something that makes us consistent with special ed requirements, but doesn't keep furthering the problem by approving yet another set of teachers that are not really being channeled into the right
Right.
path.
I think you're expressing exactly our concern.
Yeah.
Exactly our concern. When those new, the new criteria came out and special education as a whole was not able to obtain an LEA-specific license, I mean, we don't know what to do with the majority of our teachers that come to us, because we're in a situation when we hire teachers, a lot of them are on alternative pathways because of the expertise of the positions that they are in need of. So that's a really big concern for us, because if we could have them into a special education LEA-specific license, it just makes a lot more sense. And they would be eligible for that TSSP money where they are not in an elementary ed category.
So I'm struggling with what to do about the vote today. I mean, are we better off not pretending the emperor has clothes and saying, yeah, we approve this?
We don't know what to do in the short term, because we have to keep these teachers.
That's my point.
So
Yeah.
we feel like our hands are tied in that situation, because we have to keep the teachers. And last year, we had a very rigorous coursework and class for the LEA specific based on special education law, behavior management, classroom management, and effective teaching. And we provided those trainings from January through the end of May. And we felt like it was very appropriate, because we did tailor make it for USDB, then also educating on all of the criteria that needed to be covered in special education law and whatnot. But I think, Board Member Lear, that you hit the nail on the head as far as we don't know what to do either.
And I don't doubt that you did training. I mean, if you say you did, I believe you did. I'm not sure all LEAs did that. And I'm sorry,
you're fine.
I'm troubled about how I can vote for this knowing that it's really not okay.
Yeah, and I appreciate your conflict too, because that's what we have. We ultimately need the teachers in the classroom. It's not going to work if we don't have them in the classroom. So if that's what needs to be done temporarily until we can resolve the situation, it may have to be that way. But we would certainly love a resolution, because it impacts a great deal. I have other issues that go beyond this, so this is
Yeah.
just for me, the very tip of the iceberg. I have a list of 22 other educators that are out-of-state educators who have just come from out of state, and they are hitting barriers all over the place. And so I'm worried about these people. I think I'm grateful I have a path. I'm grateful that there is a solution that's been presented. The other people is going to take a lot more navigation, and I'm going to have to work with them individually.
Some of those are our problems, and we can
Yes.
address our
Sure.
problems, but I don't want to lose special ed funding over this
No.
either.
Yes.
Thanks, I'll let go for now.
And we need the approval, the action approved, so for the LEA-specific licensing, so again, our teachers can keep teaching this year,
We think,
because,
maybe.
well, because we honestly, Ryan can attest to this too, they're his teachers, we need them in the classroom. We absolutely need them in the classroom, because we don't have a big pool to draw from.
Yeah.
Thank you for the discussion.
And we're able to finally get this up.
Oh,
These are the
good.
names of the individuals that you would be approving, today. If I can make it larger so you can see it. These are those in white are the ones that are actually LEA-specific licenses that meet the traditional criteria. The ones down here, oh, you can't see it, that's gray, but it's basically line 8 through line 11. Those are the ones that we hope and anticipate will get an associate's license if you pass the rule that we accept regionally accredited programs, because these are people that had to go out of state to get their degree.
But again, once again, they would be categorized in elementary education.
Well, until they get the associate's.
It's associates. Associate license.
Yeah, that's why they're all saying.
So, let's see, we still have some lights on, but the way this dialogue was going, you're here because, like other LEAs,
Yes.
it's like the Hail Mary, the LEA specific to keep people engaged, but
Right.
at the same time, we're not meeting all of these other requirements. So is there by using the LEA specific pathway, are we jeopardizing funding, or creating something that makes it not eligible for funding? I'm just trying to
I can,
assess the risk here, and then if you would address that, because they need to have their license, they need to be teaching, but are there second and third level effects to a yes vote
I can tell
today?
you this, on the top three, those ones that are LEA specific, they probably would not qualify for the TSSP. those
Right.
top
They-
ones.
they would not at this point.
Qualify. It's the bottom ones that I've got here, 8 through 11, that would qualify or should qualify for the TSSP money. And once they get over to the
So-
associate's license, they should be able to qualify for that again. But as of this point, they don't.
Okay. But to engage and have them in contract, under contract, we have to have the LEA
Right,
specific
yes.
Right.
license. Okay, thank you for that clarity.
And that has to be submitted and done by October 1st,
Okay.
so that's why we needed it today.
Member Hutchings.
Just, and thank you, is it on? Okay. Thank you for this, because my spreadsheet only has 2 people, and so that was going to be one of my questions, but now I don't need to ask that now. I think it's the best approach that you have right now. It gives you cover to get this LEA license while the teachers, you work with the teachers to work through their individual licensing challenges, we'll call it. My question is, why are you asking for just 1 year instead of the 3 that's allowed?
Well, and for, at least for, I can tell you on my people, this one here, she only has 1 year. Also in rule, they can only be on an LEA-specific max 3 years. She will top that out this year, so that's why it's just the 1 year for her, but that's Kim Lucas. And that's a new change too. And then the others, I'm hoping, we get them over to the associates real quick, and then I shouldn't need it anymore. Some of these people are graduating at the end of this year.
Do you have follow-up?
Could you help us clarify, Malia? Because
She's
that's
just-
not my understanding. Sorry.
Hi, Malia. Hi, I'm the Educator Licensing Coordinator at USBE. So some of the changes that have had to have been enacted in the last week now are due to understanding IDEA and how it fit within our new licensing structure. And the IDEA didn't change. It was our alignment that was not in alignment. And so these are some of the things that we're having to adjust. Specifically, the LEA-specific license is reported to the federal government through our ESSA as an emergency credential. And so as such, it's not allowed by IDEA. And so that's why we've had to make this shift. So we have, in order for LEAs to receive their funding for teachers, teachers have to have a license. And so that is why we made the shift to the elementary education license area so that they would qualify for the funding that way. I don't remember what,
3 years.
oh, 3 year. 3 years also in IDEA. It's in section 300B that an educator cannot work in special education without being appropriately licensed, which under our structure is the associate or professional level license. And so our special ed department here at USBE, Leah Voorhees and Kim Fratto, have been working, we've been collaborating closely the last several weeks and have plans to support the educators who are in these kinds of situations that have been working in an underqualified status for 3 years so that we can provide the necessary training so that not only are we supporting our students in Utah, but also are compliant with IDEA.
So did that answer your question as
Did
far
you have a
as the 3
follow-up,
years?
Member Hutchings? Yeah.
So then my question goes through the limit of 3 years. My understanding was it's different than a letter of authorization that only allowed that was previously allowed, that allowed only 3 years for the licensure of a teacher. But the 3-year LEA license means that the LEA can license for 3 years. Beyond that, they can go to the state board and have further time. But so if they were to, I guess my question is, if they were to apply for the 3-year, just to give them cover so they're not having to come back each year as they work through these complications, let's say they get licensed after the first year. It doesn't consume the whole 3 years. It just gives them cover for the 3 years.
Yeah, and that's absolutely correct. There's nothing that states that we can't grant an LEA-specific license for up to those 3 years. And it just requires that we provide significant training in the area of special education so that they can support students with disabilities.
And the three in the School for the Blind, asking for the 3 years would be very appropriate as far as because, again, they're starting the program they're starting their program in the spring, in January. And as Ryan can attest, we've got a plan to support them with a strong mentor teacher. These teachers are not signing IEPs. You know, a mentor teacher is signing IEPs. We're following all of those IDEA legal issues, but it would be appropriate these are all brand-new teachers who will be needing the 3 years I don't think they're planning on 3 years. I actually think they'll be done in 2, but that would be more appropriate than coming back next year and saying we need LEA-specific licenses for ABC.
That would affect the ones
That
I
would,
just changed right here.
It would affect Mary and Jeanette and Tiffany.
However, the one that I didn't change, this is her 3rd year. So that will have exceeded her time. So that's why it's only 1 year.
Thank
Just
you
with
for
the
bringing that
change,
up.
I had to bring it up.
Okay. Vice Chair Davis? I caught her right when she's getting a drink.
Thank
Sorry.
you. No, it's okay. So really, the recommended action is that the board approve the USDB LEA-specific license. And I would just like to hear from Dr. Height. If we move forward with the motion, with this new, and I attended your training this week too, thank you for that. And I even left going, okay, I think I'm understanding what's happening here, but I'm not entirely certain. If we move forward with this action, is there anything that's putting us in jeopardy for funding or legalities or anything else? Can we move forward with this action for now and then work on all these things?
Yeah, so the intent of this pathway is so that we are making sure that we're meeting both local state law as well as federal law, and the guidance that any educator who does not have an associate or professional license in special education cannot sign IEPs as the special educator. And so that guidance is coming both from licensing as well as special education, and new teachers have to have a mentor anyway as part of board rule. And so those mentor teachers who are professionally licensed would be the ones to oversee IEP development, writing, and signing it.
Follow up.
So yes. Awesome. Thank you.
Member Moss?
Just a really quick question to clarify, under the ESSA submission, it only counts as an emergency. Is that because of the length of the certification or the nature and the lacking of the completion of a mentor training, the stuff you're talking about?
So under ESSA, the definition of an emergency credential is when requirements have been waived in lieu of completing a program. Someone may be granted an LEA-specific license. And that, because all of the other requirements of completing a program and having the training and taking the classes and passing the praxis tests have been waived for that license, then it's reported as an emergency credential.
That's under ESSA's terms and DOE guidance?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not the length.
Push that over to him.
It's the.
Member Moss, I need you to talk in that mic.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
that helps, thank you, that clarifies.
Yeah.
Member Klein, is yours? Nope. I've got, that must be linking to
That must
that
be
one over
mine.
here. Okay, I'm getting it figured out. I'm not seeing any other lights on for discussion. I'd be, Member Hutchings?
I'd just like to make a motion when we're
Okay.
ready.
And I need you closer to the mics too, as we're going. Thank you.
I would like to make a motion that the board approves the USDB LEA-specific licenses as shown on the spreadsheet currently.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You want to speak to the motion?
No.
Enough said? Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, the motion before the board is that the board approve the USDB LEA-specific license as presented or shown. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That was Lars and I. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, board. Next, it's a information item. Superintendent Joe Coleman.
Thank you. Now we're getting to the fun parts. Thank you for, there's been a lot of tears the last couple of weeks over licensing, so I'm glad to get to the good news. If we could have our employees in the back stand up and maybe come up right behind where the associate superintendents are. I just wanted to introduce the board to some of our new key employees and talk about them. Some of them aren't new, but a lot of them are. Come on up here, if that's all right. So we'll start down here at the end. This guy in the white tie, is that a silver tie or a white tie? Silver. This is Dwight Overgaard. Dwight is our brand-new facilities manager, and we are so delighted to have him. And he came on board right when we're trying to move these portables to St. George, get a new one at Mill Creek, purchase land, and it's been awesome to have his expertise. So we are very happy to have him. He reports directly to me because he's over facilities. Next to him is Rachel Benedict. Rachel is the new principal at the Jean Massou School, our largest deaf school here in the Salt Lake County. And she comes to us from Colorado. Next to her is Jonathan Hagelson, who is her associate or assistant principal there. And then Lauren is the assistant to Ryan, director to Ryan, who's sitting next to Susan. And so is Robin Clark, who has been promoted to be another assistant director for Ryan. And you know her from the expanded core curriculum previously. And so thank you all for being here. And Rachel, since you're a new principal, I was wondering if you wanted to say anything to the board or if you wish I would not have asked.
Well, it's already done.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, hang on one sec. Let's get you into a mic. So just.
Okay, again, thank you so much. I'm very excited that I am here today. Yes, Colorado had mountains, and that's why I decided, okay, Utah is great because I'm even closer to the mountains. But honestly, I've been here for a month, and the staff is so great. I'm extremely impressed by the quality of our staff, our teachers, as well as our students. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And Rachel, I'm just curious, why did you choose to come to Utah or to work for the USDB?
Just because of the mountains, Joel, yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, I was ready to grow. I was ready to take the next step. I was an educator in the classroom at a deaf school, and I was ready to try something else, to try a different path. And I loved the Jean Massou School's philosophy and the USDB's philosophy because it is based on what is best for the students. And a lot of schools don't do that. Some states are what's best for the states, and they're not really looking at what is best for our students. And I really like the philosophy of USDB and the Jean Massou School, and that is where I knew I could do good, and that's where I knew that's where I wanted to be.
Thank you. I wanted her to say that because she's told us that before, but I wanted the board to hear that from her. She's been a great fit and started off with a bang. You know, school is not easy, and we have our own unique set of challenges each year, but she's been a great leader, and I think Jonathan enjoys working with her. And oh, yes, and there's one other great connection here with Jonathan, her assistant principal. And actually, a couple things with Jonathan. Number one, his mother, Kathy Hagelson, works here at USBE. You might know her. And even though John came to us from Louisiana, he's from here originally. And he also has a connection to Superintendent Dixon. Sid was his principal when he was a little boy in school. I love you. That's great. Also, we'd like to recognize Bethany, who is our interpreter. She's one of our staff interpreters today, and she's awesome too. So. Thank you. Board members, you're welcome to ask any questions. If not, I just wanted you to see faces with people because we can do that right now, and these are some very important people in what we do with our students.
I'm not seeing any lights on, but we want to make sure we welcome all to USDB and then also to our organization. We're expecting wonderful things from all of you. So thank you for joining Utah Schools for Deaf and Blind. Thank you. We do this and this. Next, it's an informational item. We have our 7048 video. Associate Superintendent Patton, you're going to present that, and hopefully our technology works, because I know a lot of work went into this.
Board, just a quick question. Do you have that ready to share, or do we need to share? Okay. Go ahead, talk it. I'll find it.
Great. Well, I had Ryan come as well for the other presentation as well, but he and Adam Billings were the two that were our head bosses, I guess, over the 7048, and we did that in the first week of June. It seems like that was a long time ago, to be quite honest with you. But I would like Ryan to talk about some of the successes and some of the things that we're looking towards for next year. We are going to submit a proposal for next year. It will be a School for the Blind endeavor, and we're excited about that. So Ryan, I'm going to ask you to.
All right. Good morning, board. It's good to be here with you. My name is Ryan Green. I'm the director / principal of the Blind Campus programs here at USDB. As Susan noted, Adam Billings and I came up with this idea to build a boat filled with willing members, mostly willing members, to join us on a dandy adventure to Washington, where we raced from Tacoma, Washington, most of the way to Port Townsend. So this video will kind of explain our process, but as it is being brought up, I think some of the high points of this trip, besides the process of building this boat, was to see the full spectrum of emotions, and especially to see our students at their low point, which sounds kind of weird and maybe a little dark, but as our students kind of hit their low point, they were able to rebound and hit a second wind, and that's exactly what we wanted our students to experience, was in the face of Mother Nature that has no, it plays no favorites. It hits everybody equally. That in the face of that, the storms we hit during our race, they were able to rally back, hit a second wind, and they were determined to finish this race. So I'm very, very proud of them, and I feel like the ocean is a great teacher of life lessons. Where we had some bright spots, we also had some not so bright spots of our trip. We had 20 miles in, at about midnight, we had a student that was working a little too hard and threw out his back. And we needed to have some help we initially called the Coast Guard, and they were about 45 minutes out. But luckily, one of the transport ferries stopped for us, dispatched one of their Zodiac boats out to us. We did get to use a flare, which was a high point of that bad experience. But we had one of our chaperones and one of our students that unfortunately had to be evacuated onto the transport ferry. The race committee was surprised that we wanted to keep on going. They thought that we would want to stop after hitting such adversity, and we were bound and determined to keep going. Through parts of the race, we hit really intense weather. We had tides that were against us. Overall, there were about 190 people that were in this race, about 93 teams. And to give you guys a little bit of perspective on our travels, only about 34 of those teams finished. So less than half of the teams finished this entire race, and most of them were actually pulled out well before we decided to pull the plug. We actually made it 50 miles of the 70, and at that point in time, we had 6-foot swells that were going to be facing us, and our open boat could only really handle 3-foot swells. So we decided to make a good decision to pull out at that point in time. And perfect. And so even, I mean, I think the majority of us chaperones were disappointed. Our students were even more disappointed. We we pulled out. So we have the video right here, and hope you guys enjoy. Actually, in August of 2020, I was in the car listening to a podcast. They featured this Colorado team that created a yacht club, and actually ended up racing in the 7048 a couple of years ago, and they completed the race. And listening to it is such an inspiring story. I thought to myself, well, if those high school kids could do it, why couldn't our students do exactly the same thing?
So the goal of this project is for us to provide the students with an after-school program where they can build a boat, learn how to use the boat, and then enter the boat in a race. Our students don't always have the opportunity to do things that kids in normal school districts would be able to do. So to bring them something kind of unique, something that's not found in a lot of places here in Utah is a great opportunity for our students to learn how to build a boat from scratch and then learn how to paddle it and how to race.
The boat build started in February of 2021. We were finished near the end of March, and we were at Lake Powell at the end of March and the first part of April to give it a whirl in the water. Our crew consisted of 5 visually impaired students and 2 hard of hearing students, as well as 7 chaperones to give us 14 overall in the boat. We went 21 miles for our long paddle in Lake Powell, spending about 7 hours on the reservoir, giving our students a good opportunity to get a feel for the boat, and especially being in the boat for a long time. From there, we packed up everything and went to Seattle. So we spent a good chunk of that first day just putting the boat together and getting it ready and seaworthy. It was pandemonium when that foghorn went off. Everybody just digging into the water and it was just white water everywhere. We had the current going with us. We had a little bit of a tailwind, and beautiful sunset happening in front of us. We continued up Puget Sound and into the dark. By the time about 5 or 6 a.m. rolled around, you could see that the dawn was coming, but the tides had changed. At this point in time, we're about mile 40, and a volunteer boat pulled up by us and had a racer with him and said, "Hey, once you get to point no point, we've got 6-foot swells that are happening, and it's raining. It's bad weather there. We've been pulling people out of the water all day long. We recommend that you quit." So as much as we wanted to push on, as much as we were excited to, and we had students stoked to finish, we decided to pull the plug on the race. We have an overwhelming desire to finish this race. 50 miles is great. 50 miles is a great feat, but it's not 70. A proposed plan for next year is to look statewide for their students to be able to help participate and to join our crew and to finish this up. My big message to people out there that may think this is something for them: this will change your life. There's a lot of people out there that are dealing with hard things, mountains in their life. An experience like this helps put things in perspective. It teaches you to tackle hard things, and it teaches you teamwork, that you can't do things alone, that you need to have people with you that love and support you and are there every step of the way. Through that process, each stroke brings you one stroke closer to changing your life.
I will say that reading that or watching that, every time I watch it, it just is very inspirational. Some of the things, we've already actually gotten a survey together or an application to send out to all students statewide with vision loss who are blind or visually impaired, to both 3% districts and the districts that are being served by USDB. We've already had a TVI, a teacher of the visually impaired from a 3% district, contact us that they want to be part of it and want to to be, one of the chaperones. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood that this wasn't just a USDB, kids who are served by USDB. This is going to be a statewide program that they can apply to. We're going to make sure that they can physically handle it, which, can you imagine, honestly? Anyway, so I just wanted to give you an update on where we are. We would like to actually have in October, be able to launch a boat into a lake. It's a lot different in the lake than it is at the Puget Sound, so we've got to prepare. We've got to prepare and prepare early. Anybody have any questions?
I'm not seeing any lights on, but we've been briefed on this whole adventure as from start to finish, but this is a good way to kind of wrap it up with a nice video, and then we're excited to see next steps. So, Vice Chair Davis.
I do just want to thank you again for letting me participate when I came out to the practice at Utah Lake. It was just so fun, and you were so gracious and let my son and I come in and row with you. And I just loved that the laptop was blasting out. Is it Katy Perry? This girl is on fire. Is that? And I just thought, these kids are on fire, and these staff members and leaders are as well. And it was it was a really meaningful experience for me. So thank you.
Thank you. I think, Board Member Davis, I think that sums it up. I will say we also have had one of our IT guys wanting to go as a chaperone, because he sold it to Ryan with saying, I could take care of all of the technology. We could have technology, and they're blind visually impaired students. So, and again, it's a proposal. We're just wanting to start early. We don't know for sure that it will happen, but we're fresh off of it. We want it to happen. We feel like we've learned, we can do a better job now. So again, I don't want you to think that but we are.
Thank you. Did you have?
Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up. There is a lot of technology, and I was really fascinated watching the rows that got called and then the lights that would blink for those, who couldn't hear the rowing calls. And it was just, the whole thing was fascinating.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I know there's more to come, and there's
There
great
certainly will
ambassadors
be.
for our state, so thank you for making that happen. Next on our agenda, we still have Associate Superintendent Patton. You're going to brief us on, this is information on our expanded core curriculum.
Yes, so we have implemented some changes this fall, and for the School for the Blind. I think about, I've been in this position, it was a year in July, and we had some really, really great programs. I had a good foundation as far as what we needed to start with, but we've been able to think outside the box and grow our vision. And I just wanted to share with you two programs that I am so proud of. And when I say I'm so proud of, it's our administrator, Ryan, and Lauren and Robin, who have been the ones that are driving these two programs. So just a quick overview of our campus program, our blind campus program. We have 3 campuses, Ogden, Salt Lake, and Springville. Within those campuses, spread all over the 3, we have 44 students, 15 teachers, 1 instructional coach, and 3 administrators. And I want Robin and Lauren to stand once again, because we have Ryan is the director, and then Lauren Rich, raise your hand, is over our educational programs, or over our classroom, deals mostly with our IEPs and those kinds of issues. Robin Clark, who you have met before, she is over our ECC, or our expanded core program, and then also the Bridges program, which I'll get into. But I wanted to, so you could understand the setup of it, because it is important. So like I said, we had a great foundation of where we were, but it was kind of we wanted to go from good to great. And we learned a lot last year, and we're learning a lot before that too, but we wanted to be more focused. So here's some of the things that we came up with. We needed a heavier emphasis on core subjects, math, Braille, English language arts. We needed consistency across classrooms and campuses. As you can imagine, Ryan's a director over 3 campuses. We needed to make sure that those campuses were functioning with consistent programming and those teachers were getting the same professional development. We needed additional time to practice the expanded core curriculum skills, and I'll explain a little bit more about that as well. We needed greater teacher support. I think we can all agree that our teachers are in desperate need of support. And so we needed to come up with a way with not more, we didn't have more resources. We needed to do some restructuring to provide those teachers the support, both instructional support, emotional support, kind of all of the above. And we needed a culture shift. We needed to feel like we were a collaboration as the blind school for 3 campuses versus in isolation, and that the teachers did not feel isolated. So like I said, I'm explaining a little bit about the expanded core curriculum. This expanded core curriculum is a disability-specific curriculum for students with vision impairments, and I will say with deaf blindness as well. There's 9 designated areas that children miss because of their vision loss. The expanded core is not a replacement to academic curriculum. It is equally important. It's an equally important educational value. The ECC is taught by teachers of the students with vision impairments, and that's actually across the state, so our TSVIs, because we have to have an acronym for everything. And then the expanded core is taught differently than core curriculum, but it is a nationally recognized curriculum that is mandated by law that everybody who has a vision loss is receiving the expanded core on top of that. All of you have a link here to the expanded core curriculum website. I'm very proud of this, and I can brag about it because I didn't have anything to do with it. When they showed me it, I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. But it gives the three things that I told you about this expanded core. But also, on the left side, we can see about the ECC for the state of Utah, and this is to give different resources and ideas for collaboration. ECC for parents, ECC for students, and ECC for teachers. And I really admonish you to get in and click on those links because you will understand more about our what our goals are with the expanded core curriculum. Okay. So here's just a few pictures of students who are participating in expanded core curriculum activities. The expanded core curriculum, if you can think of it, a student who has the vision and the hearing, specifically the vision, they get incidental learning. They have incidental learning that we all have learned. You know, they learn independent living skills. They learn social interaction. They learn these self-advocacy where our kids do not, and they have to be taught directly. And those are what those 9 skills are. And I won't go into those, but as you can see, these are some of the activities that our kids are involved in. Okay, so the expanded core curriculum is something that separates the Utah School for the Blind than any other school district and any other classroom in the state of Utah. We try to bring that expanded core curriculum with our outreach teachers of the visually impaired, but our campus program needs to be the premier program that can be modeled. So we came up with, and when I say we, I really want to give credit where credit is due because these guys really thought outside of the box. We thought, let's make it an immersion program, immersion model. Now you can see we modeled it after the dual language immersion, which several districts and schools have done. You can see with this graphic that a lot of the percentage of time that's spent on expanded core curriculum it follows the same model as the dual language immersion. So we're trying to infuse the expanded core curriculum strategically throughout the day within instruction in the core curriculum. So what does this look like? I go between putting my glasses on and off because I'm here and here. Each teacher is a content expert for their campus and rotates into other campuses to teach their focus topic. So we have a teacher in Ogden who is an expert in math. We have a teacher in Salt Lake that's an expert in the English language arts. Those teachers rotate, and so it's a team teacher model where our homeroom teachers are then teaching expanded core curriculum throughout the day and specifically we have time for that, but we also are infusing those into the core curriculum. We also, the paraprofessionals stay in the class, which provides a consistent and familiar face for students, while teachers rotate through and teach core subjects and the ECC. We have targeted times to instruct and practice ECC skills. That's something that I think, if you think about special education as a whole, we always are saying, you'll always hear, those IEPs goals need to be embedded throughout the routines of the day. And that's something where I have seen fall short, not necessarily even at the School for the Blind, but in general, we have a goal, we have to take data on it, but we want to infuse those, and that's what we're trying to do with targeting the ECC skills and saying this and this and this and this is where we're going, this place is where we're going to strategically target that instruction. We have built in time to address those IEP goals. We have a collaborative team environment. Our teachers are now a team as a whole campus, and then the administration has also brought those campuses together for extensive professional development and collaboration, so they're not feeling like they're on their own. They did seem a little overwhelmed when this was rolled out because it was a new model. It was a new model, and sometimes change is hard. The education is consistent, like I said, across all 3 campuses, and we have advising teachers overseeing curriculum and mapping to provide support. Here's the benefits for the teachers. They have increased prep time and decreased hustle. They have a larger collaborative effort and support. They focus on less areas all at once. So they are becoming experts in the ECC, which again sets us apart, and then their instructional area in the core curriculum. Let's see, where am I? Okay, and then providing the students with intensive, thoroughly planned instruction. We have happier, more prepared, and better supported teachers. And again, this equates to better learning for students. I think we can all, again, say that our teachers are in need of a lot of support and greater amount of support, which we've been able to provide that to them. And less individual work and less work on the back end. Okay, so that is the immersion program. So that's the first program that I wanted to let you know about, the change in the way that we are running our classrooms on the campus. This is our Bridges program, which is our high school and post-secondary high school program. We've changed the name from STEP, which is Student Transition Education Program, and it was used everywhere. Our STEP kids and we wanted to change it so that it really reflected what was happening with those students. And so we chose the word bridges. And the reason we chose the word bridges is because we're wanting to bridge what's happening in education, because usually our kids are pretty successful in education in special ed. Okay, they're successful. But after they transition out of special education, we see that drop, and that's special ed as a whole. So we wanted to make sure that we were bridging the gap between our high school and secondary, post-secondary programs and into adulthood to improve the quality of life, not only for the students, but their families as well, because it's a major stress for families. So we have 4 parts of the Bridges program. All 4 Bridges program are based on, this is a key part, the Utah's Portrait of a Graduate competencies, the expanded core curriculum, and Utah state standards. We really have modeled Bridges around the Portrait of a Graduate because we are big fans, first of all, and then we also want to utilize that resource. The first of the 4 areas is our high school program, and that's 9th through 12th grade. And this is an academic high school program with all electives based on the expanded core. So the kids do have choices for their electives, but it is all based in the expanded core curriculum. The end goal for Bridges is the high school to award graduation diplomas. That's a big, lofty goal for us, but I'm confident, and we're confident that we can achieve that. Last year, we had 3 graduates. We had 2 with regular diplomas and 1 with an alternative diploma. We want to improve that so that they're getting the high school diplomas, and one of the ways we're going to do that is to improve and increase the rigor of our programs. The second one is our Bridges Community Readiness Program. So this is post-secondary, so this is after they have graduated from high school. They can come back to us. This program provides individual instruction to support students with college readiness and skills for young adulthood. One of the things that Robin Clark had was really big on. We had 3 students attending Weber State University. And when those students, and then they came back to USDB and they resided at USDB. And Robin said, those kids are not ready. They're not ready for the university. They don't have the skills to manage assistive technology, to take notes, to do the things that they're in need of. So that was a big push. We realized that, you know what, we need to improve this. So that's the second component. The third component is the residential life, and those are the residential facilities at USDB. And for students starting at age 16, they can come to USDB. That's an IEP team's decision. I want to make sure you understand that. That's not, they don't just come. That's an IEP team decision at 16. Our focus is to develop and refine skills specifically for independent living, orientation and mobility, and community awareness. We consider these skills we cover in this program as the lab work, where students apply the skills they've learned in our Campus Bridges program. So everything that is going on in the residence, we are again infusing those expanded core curriculum skills in the residence. So they're learning, and when they leave us, that they're going to be able to live on their own, or they're going to be able to live with roommates, or they're going to be able to go home and be a very active member of society in their home and residences. And the last one is the Bridges Expanded Core Intensive. This is where students can enroll in a 4-week asynchronous and synchronous ECC learning experience. 1 day is spent on the Ogden campus with all other coursework over distance learning. Students work on specific skills and receive direct instructions to support ECC development. One thing that I think that we all found with the pandemic is we can reach more people, more students, more teachers with distance learning. So those kids who cannot come and participate in some of the programs in person, we are able to reach them with distance learning. I will also say that these are not only Utah kids, the kids outside of the state are not coming to our campuses, but they can participate nationwide in our distance learning, which has given us a lot of notoriety, which isn't necessarily the purpose, but it's also helping us collaborate with other states. I'm going to just show you quickly here the website for the Bridges, and again, you can click on the PowerPoint and it will bring you here. So again, it has the 4 areas: community readiness, high school, residential life, and expanded core intensive. We have, it shows our staff, and I would like to just briefly show you, these are the staff in the residential facility. And they are wonderful. We still need some pictures here. But it gives you an idea of who we have available for in the Bridges program. And then it also goes into the high school parents and staff, community readiness, and then residential life. So there's great details on all 4 of those areas. I think it's important, really important, to understand that at the School for the Blind, we want to continue to improve. It's always important that we are evaluating what's working, and then we look at what's not working. And these 2 programs are really big undertakings. And again, I can't take a ton of credit over this because although I feel like I'm a pretty visionary person, Ryan and his team really have looked and thought outside of the box and thought, okay, you know what, we need to look at other ways that we're going to impact our kids with the expanded core curriculum, and then also looking outside the box when it comes to our Bridges program. I'm very proud of that, and I look forward to coming back in a few months and saying, here's the data that's showing this immersion program's working, because that's what we need. We need the data that's saying that we're improving the lives of our students with the expanded core curriculum. I'm happy to answer any questions, or Ryan is more than happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments? I thought it was a very thorough presentation, and I know for me, I'm looking forward to see what those outcomes are, and it looks like you have a great game plan.
Thank you.
Member Hanson's light, yours on.
Just wondered, how many kids are participating in the residential program on campus?
12, he just told me that. We have 12 on the residential. And, we do have, that is increasing. We do have people that have, students that are saying they want to participate in that. And again, once they graduate from high school, it's not an IEP-based decision, but before high school graduation, it's an IEP, so that's a little bit more difficult. But we have 12 at the moment.
And what's our capacity?
Their capacity as far as their ability.
How many beds?
Oh, their capacity.
Right, 24 beds, but it's getting a little cramped with how we have to support staff and all of that. So we're bursting at the seams a little bit, so.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other lights on. Thank you for the presentation. Next, we will hear from Superintendent Coleman on, that's next. You're up.
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. Board members, normally we don't do such a deep dive, but because of the significant changes that Superintendent Patton has made this year, she was explaining to me as we've gone back and forth, and I just thought the board just needs to hear this. This is their program, and it is a very impressive improvements. So thanks for indulging us today. I know how busy you are, but also my report will be brief. I have a few items here. First, an update on facilities. Our gym remodel in Salt Lake is 85% finished, so hopefully in the next week that'll be done. St. George Portable has been moved down there. It's in 4 pieces, and it will be assembled within the next week. I'm heading down, Superintendent Tanner also is going down today to meet with the superintendent, their building people, and just to check on our teachers in that southern region. And so I will see it with my own eyes at that time. So we're getting close to having that put together. The Mill Creek Portable is still on track to arrive and be assembled late September. Had a great opening institute with our employees, got good feedback on it, nothing significant to report. I did want to tell you about the advisory council. We have new members that have started terms and some continuing members. One member of our advisory council is a mother of a student. They actually moved here from California because of USDB. She mentioned that several times. She's very capable, super great personality. Anyway, she said because of our Deaf Mentor program and our PIP program, they chose to locate here. So I thought that was kind of neat, and I think you'll enjoy getting to know them when the board meets for the annual meeting with the advisory council. Let's see. Okay, I wanted to update you real quickly on our ASL online school that we've been working on for a few years. We have 17 full secondary courses done now, and elementary school grades kindergarten through 5 are done and ready to post online. Our goal is to finish the 6th grade curriculum this year. So that the American School for the Deaf is bragging that they're starting an online ASL school, the first in the nation, and I thought, we have the first in the nation, just so you know. It's a little bit of a great thing, and that's due to the vision of our folks too. That's all I have today, and I really want to thank you for spending a little extra time with us.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? Well, we appreciate you keeping us informed weekly and appreciate all the presentations and information today. Thank you. So